committee, and I want to welcome the people online, and I want to welcome our wonderful speaker, Tara Shanz, who I'm going to just do a very brief introduction. I found these things on LinkedIn. She is a really accomplished person. So Tara has her Master's of Science and her Bachelor's in Nursing. From what I can make of her incredible record, she's an extraordinary and admirable nursing practitioner. She has worked for Michigan Medicine Rogel Cancer Center, OSU Comprehensive Cancer Center, and the James Cancer Hospital. In her words, she is passionate about the delivery of exceptional patient care, educating clinical teams in oncology, medication, and administration, and working ardently to support optimal patient outcomes. Today, she's going to talk about this beautiful theme of finding the light after a cancer diagnosis. So thank you so much for being here. Let's welcome her.
Wow, that's a very generous introduction, and thank you so much, Jane. Thank you all for having me here today. I am very excited to be here and talking with you. I mentioned a little bit before we formally got started that this is going to be a learning opportunity for me. I'm, as Jane said, a master's prepared nurse. I've also earned my certification in oncology nursing and have been an oncology nurse since 2010. And you wouldn't believe it, but I set out on my path believing that I was going to become a nurse anesthetist. And right out of nursing school, struggled to get my foot in the door in what was required to be the next step in that journey, which was the surgical intensive care unit. And one of my nursing mentors suggested that I apply to a position on an acute leukemia unit. And she said that would be equally a great experience, and that the patients who are battling acute leukemia have oncologic emergencies that I would learn how to manage, and that those were just as much of an intensive care experience as working in a surgical intensive care unit. So anyway, I applied for a position and was offered a job before I left the interview at the James Cancer Hospital, and said yes to night shift. Had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I was so eager to be offered the opportunity that I said yes, and it was the best decision I ever made. I began working at the bedside with an amazing team at the elbows of wonderful physician scientists, and learned very quickly that working at an academic medical center means that you participate in advancing medicine in one way or another. And I was just grabbed by the mission of supporting the advancements in medicine and these physician scientists and the teams that were working robustly to find better treatment options for patients battling acute leukemia. And I thought that my experience at the James Cancer Hospital, followed by starting to work at Michigan Medicine in 2015, was a well-rounded experience for me when I was recruited to work at Merck Pharmaceutical, which is where I work now, because my master's degree in nursing that I earned is focused on clinical research. And I thought, okay, this brings everything full circle with my passion for supporting clinical research and in working with Merck Pharmaceutical instead of participating in the conduct of clinical trials and enrolling patients into the clinical trial participation and helping to collect all sorts of research samples and manage patients' care with phase 1 through 3 trials. And by the way, phase 1 is first in human. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but we're learning what the most effective dose is in a phase 1 clinical trial, as well as the safest dose, maximum efficacy and maximum safety. And so there's a lot that goes into that, and I was able to be a part of those teams and loved that work, and thought that when I finished my master's degree in nursing and was recruited by Merck Pharmaceutical, that I was coming full circle, coming from working on the side of things that were conducting clinical research to the side of things that were communicating or moving into a role in which I was communicating outcomes of clinical trials and the FDA-approved medications. And I was very, it was not quite getting the full picture of what the circle was, because just 1 year shy, or just shy of my 1 year anniversary with Merck, I was diagnosed with cancer myself. And then I thought, okay, now I've got the full circle here. I've gone from working at the bedside and participating in clinical research to working with a pharmaceutical company, communicating and educating the community about outcomes of clinical research for FDA-approved treatments. And now I'm speaking from a patient experience. And talk about God moments. The job that I am serving in now, with an amazing team in a wonderful company, I feel very fortunate to have this position, because I have been able to work full time despite navigating a cancer journey, and that's because of the support that my team and my employer and my organization has provided to me. And I've been able to do work over the weekend if needed. I've been able to do work in the evenings if needed, and they've just been really good to me and supportive to me as I've navigated this journey. But as I said, they found me, and I, via LinkedIn, I didn't think that the job was still open by the time I saw the message, because I was finishing grad school. I was working in the critical care area at U of M in the cancer center, and I also had a part-time job as well that I was trying to complete. And so I just didn't think there's any way by the time I saw that message that the job was still open, but it turned out that it was, because they had interviewed a batch or group of individuals, candidates, and hadn't selected anybody from that pool, and then interviewed me and I think others too. But I went through, as I moved through the interviewing process, I had 5 or 6 interviews. I just learned, and as I learned more and more about the organization, the team, and the mission that they were committed to, I realized that I would be very fortunate to have a position with Merck. And I was offered a position, and I accepted that position. Thankfully, I was offered that position, as I said. And then my manager, I remember, said, we have an opening on the oncology team for women's tumors or men's tumors. Which do you want to represent? And I told him each area of practice would be new for me. It would be a learning experience, because I hadn't worked in either of those specialty groups, and asked him to assign me to whatever disease group he thought would be the best fit. So he assigned me to the women's tumors, and I spent just shy of my 1 year anniversary learning about a treatment option that included pembrolizumab for a triple negative breast cancer, which is the treatment option I ended up receiving when I was diagnosed. And so it's pretty incredible that there are something like 941 pharmaceutical companies nationwide, and this one recruited me. And then of all of the pharmaceutical regimens and agents that are there and FDA approved to treat cancers, this company happened to be, had happened to be the one that conducted the clinical trial that treats the breast cancer that I ended up being diagnosed with. And I was representing it. I mean, oh my gosh, So I just want to give that little bit of background information to you guys, just to share where I'm heading here, because I think that's important in explaining why I think I have a platform to speak upon and good resources to share. And this is a great opportunity for me, because I'm writing a guidebook right now, which I plan to have a final version of next summer. I'm working with a writing coach, and I'd like to just briefly read my introduction before I go to my next slide. So this is my working title for this guidebook at this time: Finding the Light After a Cancer Diagnosis. And my email address is here for the purpose of you guys being able to reach out to me if you have any questions or any feedback that you would like to offer that might be helpful for me to include in my guidebook. I want to make sure that you know that I'm very approachable, and I welcome your outreach. So please do not hesitate to reach out after this session or in the months ahead. because we're all in this together, whether it's ourselves that's diagnosed with cancer or family or friends, we're all touched by this. And so this is my working introduction for the guidebook, and I would just like to read it to you. It says, "Dear reader, if you've picked up this book, you or a loved one may be facing one of the most daunting challenges in life, a cancer diagnosis. The fear, confusion, and uncertainty that often accompany this news are overwhelming. As a breast cancer survivor and a certified oncology nurse, I've walked this difficult path not only as a caregiver, but as a patient too. It's from both perspectives, one of professional expertise and personal expertise, that I offer you this guide. For over 15 years, I've worked with patients just like you, those navigating the labyrinth of cancer treatment. I've had the privilege of working alongside brilliant physicians, scientists, and mentors who have shared their knowledge and compassion with me. My journey has taught me much about the importance of clear communication, self-advocacy, and most of all, the power of informed choice. This guidebook is the culmination of all that I've learned through my career, my personal experience, and the wisdom of those who've supported me. Inside, you'll find a carefully curated collection of resources, tools, tips, and advice to help you navigate the many steps ahead with clarity and confidence. My hope is that these pages ease some of the burdens you may feel: the fear of the unknown, the anxiety of making decisions, and the overwhelming task of organizing your care. As you read this book, I want you to remember that you are not alone. I've been in your shoes. I've felt the same fears and questions that you are facing now, and I know how important it is to have trusted resources at your side. Whether it's understanding your diagnosis, choosing the right treatment, or simply learning how to advocate for yourself during this challenging time, this book is a small way for me to give back, to offer the same support I've received from my mentors and colleagues, and to help reduce the burden that cancer places on patients and their families across the country. You have the strength to face what lies ahead, and together we can turn the uncertainty of a diagnosis into an opportunity for hope, action, and empowerment." So that's the introduction. That's the working introduction for this guidebook. And so I'll just move on to the next point here, which is how I've been identifying with the symbolism of the phoenix. The phoenix symbolizes many things, and one of the things that is most meaningful to me about the phoenix is hope. This is one of the excerpts from my guidebook that I've written. It is important to set goals, celebrate life, live in the moment, and know that just because you have received a cancer diagnosis and someone else has not, does not guarantee they will outlive you. So live. That's really important. That's a very important message I want everyone to be aware of. And then the original, so that's my painting. This is the original here. It was inspired by something I came across online, and I was in a painting class last summer, and my painting instructor helped me paint this. But I added some gold leaf to it, and I'm very proud of this painting because it's become something that my colleagues and coworkers at Merck have made into a sticker and disseminated across our district, and it's become a beacon of hope for them and a reminder of hope for them too. And the message here with regard to hope and the symbolism of the phoenix is that we may find ourselves facing different trials and tribulations throughout life. And well, we do, because it's life. That's what happens. The longer we live, the more blessings we have, and also the more trials and tribulations we face. And what I want to share is that just because trials and tribulations or a cancer diagnosis results in some hopes and dreams becoming a pile of ashes, doesn't mean that all hope is lost. It just means that we can have an opportunity to pivot and make new plans and develop new dreams, and from the ashes emerge more hope and a new path. And so I like this very much because it's a reminder that no matter what trials or tribulations we face or cancer diagnosis, that we have opportunity to still live, celebrate life, make plans, and just continue living until we're not living anymore. So something I think is important for me to also share here is that I have metastatic cancer, and I'm currently outliving the ominous statistics of the past. And I am not I don't think I'm unique in this. And I have care providers who are working very diligently on advancing medicine. I have the medication that I received in my original treatment in 2023 had only been FDA approved for a little over a year for the treatment of the triple negative breast cancer diagnosis that I received. And there's a treatment option or a treatment I'm receiving now as well that has only been FDA approved for a couple of years. And in this journey of mine, this cancer journey, I have a really diverse team. I have received care at U of M. I have received care, well, mostly consultation from MD Anderson, and I'm currently being treated at Henry Ford. Something changed last year at this time. It was November, almost a year ago exactly, and I was very lost because I thought everything was under control. I thought, everything was behind me, and the cancer journey was kind of a speed bump that was in my rearview mirror. And that was not the case. And in working through the understanding of that and consulting with all of the healthcare professionals that have been a part of my care, I learned that not all breast oncology teams practice the same. And part of the reason I decided to transition my care to Henry Ford was because their tumor board's treatment recommendations last year aligned with MD Anderson's treatment recommendations. And that felt more comfortable to me because MD Anderson and U of M weren't seeing eye to eye in terms of their recommendations. And so meeting a team and tumor board recommendation that did see more eye to eye felt a lot more clear to me. Additionally, I felt more comfortable with the way the team was practicing and recommending to care for me, which was doing every 3-month surveillance imaging instead of waiting 6 months. Because when someone has triple negative breast cancer, the statistics say that the most risky time for a relapse or recurrence is within that first year. So I felt a lot more comfortable with the plan to do the monitoring every 3 months versus 6 months. And they do some other things differently in the way they practice as well that I was feeling more comfortable with the knowledge I have as a patient, an oncology nurse, and just in navigating that. So that was a very difficult decision to make because I had been working at the elbows of the care providers. I've been cared for by my former colleagues and my friends. And so that was a really scary decision to make. I'm very happy with the decision that I made because it was something that led me to feel a lot more comfortable, and I am very pleased to be able to say to all of you now that my September scans indicated that everything is under control, which is quite a miracle in my eyes, because when I left, Douglas was there in the clinic with me last November, and I was being told that I had been given the best treatment options that were available. So fast forward to now, and to be told that things are under control feels just like it wasn't possible. So I am so grateful for all of the care I've received by everybody who has provided care to me. But I just want to share that because it is not unreasonable to get additional opinions. It's not, if you're feeling confused at your core, it's not unreasonable to talk to more people. It's not unreasonable to transition care from one care team that's provided amazing care to another care team that might be meeting needs differently at another time. And I just think that's important to say because sometimes people get stuck in thinking that one care team's recommendations might be, what would be consistent across the board with all care teams. And it's not the case. And I think it's really worth following those instincts if you have them for a loved one or for yourselves, and making sure that you're getting as much information as possible. And that feeds into what I was saying about being empowered and with knowledge and being a good advocate for ourselves. So anyway, hope. Okay. Next slide here is just one that I want to share as a resource. The cancer support community is amazing. They have tons of resources. This is just a screenshot of their main page. As you can see, they have in-person support groups in many communities, as well as virtually. Virtually, people can access the support groups and participate nationwide, and certainly, statewide. So it's something I want to share because I think that's very helpful. And the website address is right here at the top, cancersupportannarbor.org. And I know several of the practitioners who facilitate those support groups, and they're just amazing and incredible people, and can help identify and refer to other resources as well. And then another resource here that I want to share is one of the resources I've leaned into quite a bit in making adjustments to my lifestyle, because my breast cancer diagnosis is, I've been told, because it's triple negative, it's not impacted by hormones. I don't have the BRCA gene, and all of my mutations that were tested are normal. Everything is normal. So I've been told by the breast oncologists who have cared for me that my breast cancer was caused by the environment, and there are so many environmental exposures that we have that we can control, many we can't control, and I've been trying to continue to learn about the things that I can control, and just doing more research, listening to people. I now meet with also a naturopathic oncologist who is an amazing practitioner. I would love to share his information with you too if you'd like. He has been great. He used to work at the Fred Hutch Cancer Center in Seattle, Washington, a state that employed naturopathic oncologists as part of the care team that would go on rounds in the hospital. Michigan is not one of the states that identifies a naturopathic oncologist to be a core member of the interdisciplinary care team, but he said 25 states do, and he's hoping that Michigan will be one of them in the future. Meanwhile, he does practice here. It just has to be some out-of-pocket cost, and he's helped me to identify lifestyle changes that I can make to help improve my exposures, and thereby supporting the Western medicine I am receiving to heal me from cancer, and so I'm not living my life in a way that's counterproductive to that. And the Environmental Working Group website is one that I'd like to point out. The Environmental Working Group is a .org site that is non-partisan. It's independent, and they go through cleaning products, personal care products, even mattresses. They can identify mattresses that are good, that you want to avoid because they have off-gassing and things like that because of the chemicals and the synthetic materials that are used to make them. And so the Environmental Working Group website is one that I recommend familiarizing yourself with. And I love this quote by Dr. Lee Aaron Connolly. "You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. This includes diet, relationships, daily habits, and thoughts. Not every negative narrative has to define your journey. Healing is possible, and you are capable of extraordinary things. It's never too late to begin again and start the healing process." And I want to highlight here what stands out to me. Not every negative narrative has to define your journey. That's important. Some people will have things to contribute that aren't very productive or constructive, and it's okay to thank those individuals for their contribution and move on from that in disagreement and head your own way. It's okay to live with rose-colored glasses if you want to, but be informed, and this is a good resource that I've found. I love it. And I want to point out too that they have a hazard score system. The EWG certified is the best rating that can be found on products. But I want to point out that even though it may be a 7 or a 6, you have the opportunity to learn more about why a product was assigned that rating and can make an informed decision for yourself. For example, if a fragrance doesn't have a lot of data or information about it, that might be something that causes a product to have a higher hazard score just because they don't have enough information to determine what the lower score could possibly be. So that's just a brief introduction to the EWG site, and those are the 2 primary resources I wanted to share with all of you, and make sure you know about them because they're very helpful. And this is my last slide I wanted to get to. This picture was taken last weekend. I was at a workshop, writing workshop, and so I just want to point out the obvious. This is not my real hair because my treatment that I'm receiving right now has resulted in me having hair loss, and I am accepting that, and I have beautiful wigs that I get to wear and play with as a result. So, but this is one of my favorite quotes by Matthew McConaughey, and it's from one of his movies earlier in his career, and he says this quote with a southern twang, which I don't imitate very well, so I'm just going to say, you just got to keep on living, man, Livin. And that's what we need to do. And it doesn't matter what trials, tribulations, or cancer diagnosis we encounter and we endure, we have a lot of life to live, and it shouldn't slow us down, it should not define us. There's a lot of support out there. And I included this little image here just to give you some perspective of actually what that looked like. Looking down from that peak that I was standing on, it was a very adventurous trip, and that's in Joshua Tree National Park. So that was really fun, and I enjoyed that and the group that I was with very much. And with that, I would like to open up the dialogue and see if any of you have any questions or anything you'd like to contribute to me. I would really love to hear what your thoughts are. Any questions you may have? Yes?
Well, wait, you had mentioned, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that you had metastatic cancer. What is that exactly?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Metastatic cancer is, so in fact, I have images here of my mammogram. So this white mass is the mass, that's the tumor that was found in 23. And this measurement is one that you can't see easily, but it's 77.7 millimeters. It measures from here to here, and that's a little over 3 inches. And at that point, the tumor was large. It had been growing for a while, and we didn't know it at the time that this imaging was done, but we found out before I finished my 6 months of chemotherapy, before I had my surgery, that the cancer wasn't just, the breast cancer wasn't just in the breast tissue anymore. It was also in my liver. Metastatic cancer means that the cancer cells are growing someplace besides the original site. It's moved. In most cases, breast cancer moves to other parts of the body through the lymph nodes. And so when the imaging was done on me in 23 and the lymph nodes looked clear on the imaging, although it can spread through the bloodstream, those cancer cells can spread through the bloodstream, which is what happened to me. There wasn't concern at the time to do any more imaging or look any further because it wasn't in most cases, it's in the lymph nodes. And they don't practice for the minority. They really kind of form their practices along the parameters of the majority. And so we found out, later in my treatment that the cancer had moved to my liver. And that's what's giving me the problem today. It's not found in the left breast tissue, which has been removed. It's not being found, thank goodness, anyplace else except for the liver. But that's what I'm being treated for now. The breast cancer is in the liver. The breast cancer cells are there, and so I'm being treated with a type of medicine. It's called a conjugated antibody. It is a type of chemotherapy, but it's indicated for the treatment of triple-negative breast cancer that I was diagnosed with. And even though it's in my liver, that's the appropriate treatment for it because that's the kind of cancer it is. So the metastatic disease is happens anytime the cancer cells move outside of the site of origin. Does that answer your question? Okay, yeah. And typically when you have stage 4 cancer, then it's considered to be a terminal cancer diagnosis. And yet, medicine is changing. And I'm on the heels of these changes, and I feel very fortunate. It's very bittersweet because I'm benefiting from advancements in medicine that are very new that other moms, sisters, daughters didn't get to benefit from. And it's very hard to, be living in a time in which we have these new treatment options. And yet I'm very grateful for that too. Yeah.
Tara?
Yes?
First of all, it's amazing that you decided to become a Stephen minister in the middle of all this.
Thank you.
It's really, really wonderful. It's all giving back, isn't it?
Yes.
The other thing is, I was just involved last month in a fundraiser for the cancer support community and learned all about it, and that it's all free.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes.
So I brought some information here if anybody is interested in it.
Wonderful.
Tell me how you've been involved with them.
I've been involved with them because my direct teammate at Merck, who lives in Ann Arbor, sits on their board. And we've participated in our team in some of the different initiatives, like the Amazing Race that's done every year annually in Ann Arbor, and some other things. I've also donated to the Brides Project, I think, and there are other practitioners that I know who volunteer at the Brides Project with collecting dresses and fitting brides with dresses from the inventory they have, and that's just a really rewarding program. And I learn about some of the initiatives that are going on through my direct teammate, and she kind of gets us involved. But yes, the cancer support community has a lot of community outreach programs, and in addition to their support groups and other resources. So I definitely encourage, and I've been a recipient of some of that support myself. Jane Deering, I'd like to just give a shout out to her. She's an amazing woman. She's a retired social worker from the Cancer Center at U of M, and she went into private practice just to work like 1 or 2 days a week. And she ended up having a full schedule, and she just loves it, and she's been doing that. I think she's been technically retired for a long time, I think more than 10 years, and she just keeps continuing to help the community because she loves it, and she's just amazing. And she has a lot of amazing stories about patients who have been given a stage 4 cancer diagnosis and are continuing to thrive. And that's also a message I want to point out too, and make sure is being delivered, that with these advancements in medicine, even stage 4 cancer is being managed like a chronic disease in a lot of cases. And that's furthermore a reason why everybody should be making plans and continuing to celebrate life and live, because there's a lot that we can do with the time we have. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I wanted to give an example of you just got to keep on living, man.
Yeah.
I walk around along Gallup Park, and I met up with the mother of someone who ran with my son about 10 years ago. And it came out that she, my wife, myself, we all had cancer diagnoses. But she was training to run the New York Marathon. And when I see her next, I'll find out how she did.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful, Andy. Yes, that's right. Love that. That's inspiration for me, because I did a sprint triathlon not this summer, but the summer before. And that was pretty exhausting. And so I can't imagine doing a marathon, but that's inspirational. Sprint triathlon, it's when you do the bike, swim, and the run, but the sprint is the shortest. It's like a 20 or 15 mile bike ride, mile swim, and a 3 mile run or something. It's like the shortest. Yeah, but the marathon, oh my gosh, that's so intense. Thank you for sharing that. That's so inspirational.
Thank you for being here, Tara. You're such an inspiration to so many of us, and I just appreciate your transparency and your positive spirit and the way that you give to other people in the midst of it. It's truly wonderful. I have a slightly different question, though. We had a member here named Ralph Winter who was diagnosed with breast cancer, and he went through treatment at U of M, and then and he and his wife Ginger, some of you remember them, they moved to the Bloomfield Hills area, and then his breast cancer returned, and he actually died from that about 2 years ago. But I just don't feel like I know enough about, I don't know enough about breast cancer in women, but I definitely don't know anything about it in men and how it is screened or not, and what percentage of breast cancer happens in men. And I just wondered if you know anything about that you could share a little bit for the men, too, that are in the room, and those of us that have sons and husbands.
Absolutely. And thank you for raising that question. I have a notebook here that I'm writing some of these things down in that will be things I include in my guidebook, too. So thank you for bringing up this topic because it's a very important one. We oftentimes do think that breast cancer is unique to women. There are more and more men being diagnosed with breast cancer too, and as far as screening goes, I'm not familiar with the standard of care practices, and I'm not sure that there are any established at this point, but I do want to say that one of the things that would be important for men to know is whether or not they have any family history of the BRCA gene, because that's really one of the highest risk factors for men developing breast cancer. And in people who have the BRCA mutation, there are other types of cancer that they're at higher risk of developing, including ovarian cancer and prostate cancer. And so knowing whether or not the BRCA gene is one they carry and that they have family members or a family history of being mutated and contributing to breast cancer diagnosis or other type of cancer in family members is something that is very important to investigate, to know about, and then that would lead them to have hopefully good dialogue with their care providers and determine what a screening frequency should be that's appropriate for them.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thanks for raising that question. I'm going to do a little bit more research myself, and I'll circle back to you and let you know what I find out.
And I just wonder about mammograms too. Because,
Yeah.
Mammograms are not very pleasant.
Yeah.
They could be worse, but I can't imagine men having to try to have a mammogram. There must be some way that those screenings happen. I just can't even imagine it, but people are brave.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are non-radiologic modalities that are being used more and more, including ultrasounds, to do an initial screening and to pick up on any abnormalities. And then that can lead to more sensitive screenings and imaging as well. An MRI can be done instead of a mammogram. Some women who have been determined to have dense breast tissue it's recommended that they receive MRIs and not mammograms for the remainder of their screenings. So that's something that is an option too. You bet. Thank you.
I'm so impressed with how well you are able to advocate for yourself, and I'm just wondering what a person who's not worked in your field, like how do you know that you should talk to somebody else, or like how do you find that power or whatever you need inside you to say, I need more information? Does it just, like, what do you see in your other patients? Because I think your situation is you've been wonderfully prepared for this through your work. I'm thinking of my 87-year-old aunt. Like, how am I going to get her to not just listen to the very first thing she hears, or maybe she should. When I don't know.
I think one of the defining factors for having the guiding compass lead us in one direction or another, whether to be comfortable with what's being shared with us and what's being recommended, and maybe feeling like it might be good to hear some other thoughts, is what we feel in our core. You know, we have those feelings for a reason, and we're encouraged to listen to those inner voices when we hear that conflict or that discomfort come up. We're encouraged to listen to those voices as we navigate relationships, interpersonal relationships, other situations. I would say it's no different when you're sitting in front of members of a care team and feeling like there's just maybe some questions that aren't being answered, or something just doesn't quite sit well. And, you know, going back to my experience in November, I was feeling uncomfortable with the differences in opinions of the experts. And I was in the middle, and I was thinking, how can I be the person who's supposed to make these decisions? And I thought, and how could I not agree with one and feel in more alignment with the other if I haven't been a breast oncologist and spent my entire career caring for patients and navigating the forefront of the changes and advancements in medicine? Who am I as an oncology nurse or a person who is not a physician scientist to have these thoughts and feelings? Until I heard another voice and other tumor board's perspective. And without me sharing what my thoughts and my feelings were that were slightly uncomfortable in the situation, they addressed them. And I had sort of this aha moment in which I knew that that was where I needed to be next. And I was so glad that I listened to that intuition, and so glad that I had the support that I did to kind of help me to get connected with the people that I needed to be connected with. And I mean, that's the best thing that I can say. I have another example that unrelated to my own care. I have an aunt who is older than I, and I remember she was navigating a breast cancer journey several years ago, and post-treatment in her, I think she was in remission times like, you know, a couple of years. But anyway, she started developing a cough that was very uncomfortable, and she ended up having a procedure to explore the cause of the cough. And what they were doing is they were making an incision between her clavicles, and they were inserting a scope between her chest wall and her pleural cavity. The pleural cavity is the tissue that encloses the lungs, and they were exploring, you know, the exterior of that. Instead of going into the lungs, they were exploring the outside of the lungs. And her nurse anesthetist came into the room, introduced himself, and said, "I'll be placing an epidural because of the area of your body that we're going to be doing the procedure in." And my grandmother, my elderly grandmother, and my aunt were just, you know, sitting there and saying, "Okay." And my aunt later said that sounded a little funny to her, but she wasn't going to question this expert. And I was in nursing school and sitting in the corner, and I just raised my finger and I said, "Excuse me, can I ask a question, please?" And I said, "You know, could you please help us to understand why she needs to receive anesthetic from the waist down if the incision is going to be made between her clavicles?" And all the blood drained from his face. He was white as a ghost, and he said, "Could you please repeat that?" And I repeated myself, and then he said, "I'll be right back." And he left the room immediately, and then, you know, did a little bit of, I guess, you know, reorganization, and then came back and said, "That is correct. We don't need to do the epidural." And so, yeah, it's important to speak up. Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for this wonderful presentation, but I'd
Yeah.
like to add to that because a couple things.
Yes.
Everyone, I think, needs a patient advocate
Oh,
if they're in the
yes.
healthcare system, and that's really important. But the second thing is a good relationship with your healthcare providers, and every physician any physician I would go to, I would make sure that they were very happy for me to have a second opinion, because I think that's so important with a diagnosis, a serious diagnosis, that you're seeing someone who is comfortable with you getting a second opinion. And what matters most is the interpersonal relationship with your caregivers. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I agree totally. And I want to say that all of my care team members at every facility I've received care from have encouraged second opinions too. So there are I don't mean to be saying anything that casts a negative light on anybody or any organization or any team. Just sharing my journey and what's unique to me and the personal details of that.
I know there's other hands. I just want to sneak one thing in myself. I just want to plant a seed. I think you're amazing.
Wow,
And you're so beautifully articulate. And I just would encourage you to think about a video of some kind that brings your message, that could travel through sharing on video, because you're beautiful in how you are sharing your message. And I'm sure the resource book is extremely generous, but I would just encourage you in this day and age to think about finding someone to help you make a TED type talk.
Wow.
Because you are really beautifully articulate.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Jean.
so-
Thank you so much. That's very helpful feedback for me. Yes. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Jane, and thank you, Tara, for being here and for sharing your inspiring story and wisdom and experience. It's such a gift to us all. I was just wondering, as someone who's been a patient, receiving support, and someone who's offered support in various ways, what have been some of the most helpful ways that your loved ones or family have been able to support you, and maybe some ideas how we could support others who maybe have had a similar diagnosis or hard situation?
Absolutely. That's a chapter I have kind of written out, and so I'll refer to my words here. The first chapter is titled Diagnosis and Now What? And I kind of go into answering your question in this chapter. I think the instincts that people may have when they find out that there's been a change in their health is to alert their support system. And I would encourage people not to do that right away, because when it comes to cancer treatments, there may be situations in which somebody would have the recommendation to receive radiation first or surgery first. In the instances in which somebody needs to receive chemotherapy first, and depending upon their age and desires to have a family, they may want to consider cryopreservation for females, or sperm freezing for males. And for the female cryopreservation process, that requires medications, that requires a surgical procedure, that takes time. And if somebody needs to start chemotherapy right away, I think it was about 3 weeks between the time of my diagnosis to the time I started chemotherapy in 2023. And had I wanted to do cryopreservation, which I thankfully had done in 2020, because I didn't have the forethought that this would be my journey, but I just wanted to relieve the stress and pressure on myself. And I know that took several weeks to get plugged into the system, and then the process of doing the administration of the medications that lead to the surgical retrieval process happening takes several weeks. And so if there's anything like that that anybody wants to do, it's important that they get their thoughts organized, get their wishes organized, work with their care team to get their plan of care in order. Additionally, there are lots of appointments that somebody is going to be having, and so it's important for them to not be distracted by making multiple phone calls to update all the members of the support system who they've alerted to the change. I would encourage those individuals to have a key contact person who is maybe attending those appointments with them and hearing things, because there have been times in which I have been reminded by somebody that something else was said that I didn't recall, and I've just said, thank you so much for reminding me of that. I don't remember that being said, and boy, does that offer a lot of reassurance or relief to hear that. And it's just, I think having one or two supportive individuals who are able to attend those appointments, be a second set of ears, and then depending upon the dynamics of the family and the support system, maybe also be the spokesperson for the patient who is in need of managing their care and scheduling the appointments, getting to the appointments, and trying to make sure that things are organized. There's a lot that happens right up front when there's a new diagnosis. Lots of consultations, lots of testing, lots of appointments, and then once all of those appointments are completed that lead to the plan of care being established, then I think that's the time to alert the support system and to all of the ends of the earth, But I mean, when I was diagnosed, my parents were out of the country. They knew I had had a mammogram, and I knew by the time I left that mammogram that I had cancer, but I didn't know what type, I didn't know what stage, I didn't know any of that. And so what good was it going to do to tell my parents that before they left town? Because they weren't going to be able to help me. And I thought that the better place for them was to be on this trip they had planned. And so by the time they got back to the country, I had met with the breast oncology team. I had met with the surgeon. I had met with everybody. I had had my biopsies. I had to have 2 separate surgical procedures for biopsies. I had all the information. So by the time they returned from their travels, I was able to say, I do have breast cancer. This is the type. This is the plan. This is what's happening. And that was good for me to be able to have all of that information, because what follows in alerting the support system is a lot of questions, and they're questions that you don't have answers to yet. So that can be overwhelming. That's why I encourage people just to focus on getting themselves organized, figuring out their plan, having 1 or 2 individuals that they're keeping up to date about things with. And it's okay to say to people who might be asking, or if you have to cancel plans with, that you've had a change in your health and you're going through several appointments right now to figure things out. And once you have a clear plan and a clear diagnosis, then you'll be happy to sit down and explain what's going on. But at this time, you need to clear your schedule of things, because you've got to focus on your care.
Unfortunately, it's 11 o'clock.
Oh, right.
A little gift for you from the Adult Faith Formation. Yeah, please, a round of applause.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So, Tara, here is a small gift of thank you from Adult Faith Formation.
Thank you so much, Jane, and thank you to the Adult Faith Formation group. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
And also, I think, I don't know if you saw, but the Advent theme, Mel left, I think is hope. And I just thinking about your Phoenix image as just a beautiful blessing at this time that we can hold on to through all of Advent. So thank you again.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I practice.
She's your contact. She's absolutely right. And she will know the people, she's in business school contact. She'll know